Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Jae Encarnacion, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are thrilled to have Andrew Chesnutt, the founder of the Authority Forge. Andrew brings nearly 20 years of experience in the learning industry, a passion for storytelling, and a mission to help entrepreneurs build authority through platforms like podcasts and keynote speeches. Based in Buffalo, New York, the Authority Forge is revolutionizing how founders and speakers amplify their voices, the land opportunities. We'll be exploring his founding story, how his business empowers clients in the authority building space, and his vision for scaling this impact-driven venture. So with that being said, let's dive right in. Andrew, welcome to Founders Future.
Jae, thank you so much for having me.
Absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Incredible what you're doing. Definitely resonates with myself here being the host of the podcast. So truly appreciate everything you are doing and coming on the show today to talk a bit more about it with our listeners. So if you can, take us back to the beginning a bit here for our listeners. What specific problem in the authority building landscape, Andrew, really inspired you to start the Authority Forge?
So it actually started about 10 years ago. I was working for a major pharmaceutical company at the time, and a lot of times we have to do remedial training if somebody makes a mistake. It's part of FDA compliance.
Hmm.
And so I was tasked with doing this thing. Now, I had been in the learning industry about 10 years at that point and still was a pretty good trainer. And so then they knew that I was really good at taking on the super dull stuff. So I get this specification document from, I think it was my boss's boss, and two compliance lawyers, right? This thing is a bear. And I look at it going, there's no way I'm going to make this good. Just there's nothing you could do. No amount of polish is going to make this look better.
Yeah.
So I ended up creating this course and doing my best, pulling out every trick I had, ended up at a 164 slide PowerPoint
Wow.
that was supposed to be delivered over an hour and a half. So I present this thing, and of course, as soon as I present this thing to my boss, she's, yeah, the FDA auditor's on site. He wants to see this. So I'm like, great, of course, Murphy's Law, right? So I walk into this conference room, and I want you to imagine this table, this long conference table, and you have people sitting around it with only initials in their titles, like VPs and stuff like that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And at the end, this auditor who does not look like he wants to be there and looks like he's had a very long day and looks like he is not in a good mood. So I present this thing to him. He goes through and looks at it for probably an agonizing 5 minutes.
Mm.
When he's finished, takes off his glasses, looks up at me and says, "Is this meant to remediate or is this punitive?" After a brief cardiac event, at that point, I realized I never wanted to do this again. There had to be a significantly better way to do presentations in general. So for
Mm.
this one was with training, but this started me on a path where I never wanted to commit academic assault again like that, because that's essentially what this thing was. I wanted to see if there was a way that I could make these presentations engaging, still get the job done, but do it in such a way that it wasn't going to be torturous for the people around. Fast forward a couple of years, I went out on my own. I was laid off from that position, ended up having to go in and ended up having to go out on my own. And I had always had the entrepreneurial spirit. I tried to start a video production company when I was 16. So I knew I was going to be in business for myself at some point. I had
Absolutely.
that draw towards the builder side of things. Like I wanted to build something awesome. So again, fast forward a number of years, and what I was working on, looked at real estate because I wanted to find the common denominator that wealthy people would do, and real estate was what that was. I
Mm.
saw that every person, I don't care what their thought process was, where they came from, what they thought, what their nothing, whatever it was, real estate was the common denominator.
Yeah.
So I went to a bunch of real estate investor association meetings and everyone was trying to sell me something. So this was something I didn't, this was the example of what I don't want to see. I think some people are good examples of what to do. Some are people are good examples of what not to do. They're both good examples though, and they both can be inspiring for us. So I kept sitting there just getting pitch slapped, and I don't want to deal with this. This is
Yeah.
not what I came here for. And then I found one that wasn't that. There was actually value being brought. So I sought out the owner or the head of the RIA and somebody ended up connecting us. And I explained to him what I did. I create engaging training. He had a show on HGTV at the time for flippers, and he was creating a company that was around real estate education.
Amazing.
So walked up to him and introduced myself as an instructional designer because that's what my technical title was. And in our industry, we know what that is. He was going in a million directions, heard structural designer, had two foundations going bad on his flips, and really needed an engineer to look at it. Total miscommunication. That got me breakfast the next morning. I explained what I actually did and spent 8 years with him, helping to build out these things. What ended up happening about a year after I started with him, though, is an interesting path. The show wasn't picked up.
Mm.
HGTV was sold to Discovery. Discovery said no new shows. Now, at this point, it was greenlit. It was ready to go. Piloted 4 times. Everything was there. The ratings were awesome. Said nope. 4 years
Yeah.
worth of work in this part, done in a day.
Wow.
One decision. And so we realized we did what entrepreneurs do. You pivot. And so we realized that what ended up happening, or what we ended up doing, was going into life insurance. Another really dull process, right? Another thing that nobody really
Yes.
wants to talk about. Great. I'm going to talk about something that I'm never going to use because I have to be dead to use it. It's not going to happen, right? Well, the way that he was doing the way that he was doing insurance was a little bit different. What it was is using a cash value for the policy. So instead of worrying about death benefit, we're looking at the ability it's an advance on your death benefit, very briefly put, but hard concept for people to get. So first thing we did is he knew he was going to have to go out, just like you do when you're in the grind phase, and build authority. Go out, what do you do? Get above the noise, start to teach people what you're doing, have some clarity about the process you use to do this. So he took a presentation from a mentor of his that was already converting, switched it over to what Chris was doing, and ended up building a 7-figure company out of this. So, I realized at that point I was really good at this. I loved working with entrepreneurs. I was a terrible employee. I hated the 9 to 5. It was nothing I thrived in. It was I have to do this because I have to pay my rent. That was all it was.
Yeah.
I learned in that moment I could take that education background and use it to boil down complex problems into simple things that people could eat and people could take in, small digestible chunks. I realized I love speaking. I love being on stage. That's my natural habitat. It sounds weird, but yeah.
Yeah.
Comes from a long line. My mom was an amazing speaker. My grandfather was an amazing speaker, so I come from a line. And I realized at that point it was also a great way to build authority. Fast
Amazing.
forward a number of years, it was 2 companies I built with Chris, or I was part of the team to build those companies. Went on my own a little bit ago and created the Authority Forge, because I know that these processes work. I know
Mm.
being out on stage and giving a compelling keynote that's story based. That was one of the things we really focused on. Means that you now can go out, spread your version of wisdom, and do it in such a way that it's actually entertaining, that people want to hear what you have to say, that you're giving them value, and it also converts really well. So there's that two sides.
Yeah.
So podcasts are also another thing. This was something that I love doing. I have my own. I'm always a big fan of podcasts, and it's a little bit of a different way to explain what you're doing. You're explaining in a more conversational way, and it builds authority by proximity. Think about
Yes.
walking into an event. If you walk out of that event with some people who are very famous, you're by proxy going to have authority because you're now in the rooms with these people. You can do the same thing through a podcast as well. So that was the backstory behind what I do and how the Authority Ford came to be.
I love it. I love it. So talk to us about the Authority Forge. Definitely want to get into the nuts and bolts for our listeners who, once this episode airs, Andrew, could very well want to come and work with you, hearing what you're bringing to the table here. So how are you really generating revenue today with the Authority Forge as far as the core offer, and who is your ideal client that you like to work with in this side of things?
hmm So I founded the Authority Forge because I realized that, and having built companies, I realized, especially when you're in that point when you're building authority, you're chief everything officer. Your job title is yes, whatever the hell I have to do today to make it work. And time is a huge issue. I've been trying for a 36-hour day or cloning technology for years, and it hasn't quite come through for me yet. So we're just here in the grind. That works. It's not really going to be here anytime soon, but that's that part. A friend of mine calls it the valley of sorrow. I call it the suck. It's that point when you're trying to build.
Yes.
The problem is that's when you need authority the most because you're getting above the noise, but you don't have the time to do it. And so what I did with Authority Forge is done for you. Minimal amount of time to do it right, to get it nailed in, but also to respect your time and to basically outsource it to someone going, hey, let's talk about this. Let me get your stories and we'll take care of the structure for you. We'll put it out into something that converts and we'll walk you through the process. So that's really what I wanted to do with people is both podcasts. Most people don't do podcasts, or the number one thing that I see people having trouble with is the technical aspect. I just we just let people show up. Just
Yeah.
come a few hours a month, go chat with some cool people. We'll take care of the rest of it. We'll get them for you. We'll do the production. We'll make sure that it looks good. We'll get it into your socials. We'll manage metrics and make sure that the messaging is on point and all of these other background things, building that authority. You just show up and chat with some really cool people. That's what we wanted. Keynotes, same thing. You show up, we talk a little bit. I do it on Zoom. It takes a few hours of your time plus some rehearsal after that, and we get your story nailed in. We help you to structure it because even a lot of experienced speakers. I had one speaker, Carlos. He's been speaking forever. He calls me up one day. He's, look, I got to be on stage with Grant Cardone in 3 weeks, and I need a hand just getting this. I have this talk in my head. I need a hand getting it down onto paper. And so sat down with him and helped him to do it. So you don't have to be new to be able to help. But for me, it's more, I want people who are like, look, I am having a lot of trouble structuring this. I'm having trouble just sitting down and getting it done. My ideal client says things like, yeah, I'm meaning to speak, or I'd love to have this keynote, but I just can't structure it, or things like that. Those are or I'm just having trouble getting it out of my head. I don't want to go through the process of trying to design something in PowerPoint. I don't want to have to think about this. I want someone to walk me through the process so I don't have to use my brain power that I'm using to generate income on this other side.
I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. So with that, really coming in with that value round,
Mhm.
providing everything needed for the podcast and the keynotes, all they have to do is just do the actual speaking. That is truly helping so much, and it is an incredible way to come to market. What's
Mhm.
working best for you, Andrew, on the acquisition side? Talk to us about what channels you're seeing are most effective for you, and do you have a lever that you can pull for a predictable lead flow coming in so you have that consistency?
Right now, it's 100% referral.
Wow.
One of the things I did when I first started with Chris and the companies is and this was something I just knew in my head, I built a power network. And the interesting thing is, I'm not just building the network for people who I can use for specific things. I'm not building it just to get something out of them. These are also my friends. These folks are awesome people. I have a hoodie on that says I do cool stuff with my friends. And that's how I like doing business. We go through some really cool stuff, get a bunch of visionaries in a room. It's an amazing thing. But what I did is I made sure that I had people in there that were both farther along on their entrepreneurial journey and not quite as far along.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen is we're going to go do our cool stuff. We're going to build those things together. And so right now it's just mostly referral at this point. I am going to because I've done it with two other companies before, we're going to get into some external marketing and that the marketing is different. It's easier to do the referral marketing just because I already have people who are referring through and saying, hey, go do this. We used to do events for the companies and you get a speaker up there who you always have to approach this delicately, but you have a speaker up there, they're really good at what they do and they have a really cool product, but they really need a hand.
Yes.
I can just nicely, and a lot of times people will know this. If you've got a decent sales presentation, you know it's converting. Sometimes we can tweak it to make it a little bit more engaging. Sometimes we can get that little extra out of it. And so I was able to do that as well with the events that we would put on. I just come in and say, hey, this is what I do. Does this sound interesting? Or can we get 30 minutes and let's chat about this and see what we can do to make this even better for you or to help you out with this? Or you always have to approach delicately. So right now it's just been mostly referral based, just because that's a lot of what I've done. Yep. And
Absolutely.
trying to get my message dialed in, really, these are the exact people I want because I run in this weird sitting down with somebody the other day who uses AI to search LinkedIn
Yeah.
for leads. And I'm trying to define who my ideal client was. And that was harder than you think because it's not a keyword. It's
Right.
not coaches. It's coaches who want to speak, which is not something I'm going to put on LinkedIn.
Can't really find a search for
And
that.
so for me, it was dialing in that ideal client. And that took a lot more time than you'd think
Yeah.
just to get it really dialed in. And I think getting an ideal client is half science, half art form, half luck. You try it, see what you got. Okay, now this is working. Well, that's not quite right. Now let's steer this direction. Now let's go this and getting in on that exact person, especially if you're in a world like I am, where it's not clean cut. Yeah. Yeah. But so right
So
now, just referrals.
So with that there, how are you thinking about the idea of that scale side? I know you were just mentioning maybe getting into some more external marketing, but are you thinking having some ads set up, the social media side, so you do have that predictability with the lead generation? Obviously, a big factor. Is that kind of next steps in your mind right now?
Absolutely. So the first thing I wanted to do, because I've been doing this for a while, but it was always me sitting down doing the keynotes, and I just saw everything in my head and then was able to lay it out that way. I realized that's not scalable. I
Right.
need to be able to duplicate myself and to be able to have a system in place that says, here's how I do things. Here's the process to do it. And there's got to be some sort of person behind it. I can't just have a VA do it for me. Or AI do it for me. There's got to be somebody who knows what they're doing, like an actual trained copywriter. But I needed to come up with a way to walk people through this process or this customer journey that isn't just me doing it, if that makes sense. So a lot of times it was those processes behind it that I really had to build first. Here's my framework. Here's what I do. So I have a part of my framework I call my mountain Sherpa peak sequence. Helps people to understand what I do, but it also makes it so that somebody else can go, okay, here's what the mountain was. Here's the Sherpa. Here's the peak. Mountain thing you had to overcome. Sherpa thing or person that helped you to overcome it. Peak view from the top. There's a lot of science behind how that works, but now I can have somebody go through and duplicate it. So as far as the ads and stuff, I had to get the process down first so I could duplicate myself, which is why I've only been referral up to this point. Now I have the processes down. Now it's time to scale it.
Let's go
So
down.
now I can take on the additional workload
Yes.
versus being really limited on the number of people I could take in. So that was what had to happen. And I saw this happen with previous companies where we tried to build a company and we didn't have the processes in place. And all of our titles were yes. And once you start to get over, I think it's around 500,000, like 500,000 gross revenue a year,
Yeah.
it starts to get really untenable. Like you can't it's something that you need to start looking at processes instead of everyone doing everything. It needs to be, no, this is your lane, you stick in your lane, these are the questions that you ask this lane, these are the questions you ask this lane, this is where this goes. Trying to do that it can be very difficult. So I saw it go wrong. And again, let's go back to the some are examples of what to do, some are examples of what not to do. They're both good examples. Yeah.
Love it. I love it.
The
So,
processes are huge.
as far as right now, are you running it as a solopreneur, or do you have a sales team, marketing team, and that side of things set up, or is it just you right now?
So I do have a small team. I've got somebody who helps me out with marketing as well as editing. He's an editor for the podcasts and that. I've got a VA who helps just generally keep things together. Like, where is this thing? Do this task over here. The stuff that I need to offload. So for right now, it's basically I'm doing the main parts of the work. I've got a copywriter I can pull in if it when it gets to the point where I have a lot of clients come in. I have a copywriter who helps out as well. So I do have a small team helping me out on that. That will be growing out as the company expands.
I love that. So overall, thinking about a bottleneck, right? It can sounds like it's around really that lead gen, having some predictable lead gen is something that you're breaking through, and then potentially getting you more on a sales side of things, right? Getting setters and closers into place, putting you in the founder role, not having to worry about the grunt work to get everything up and running. So breaking through those and really being able to scale now, having the right system in place, paint us the picture before I take us into the lightning round. I would love to just hear the vision, right? The rest of 2025, Andrew, going into 2026, what does that look like in your mind right now? What are you laser focused on for breaking through those bottlenecks and achieving that scale?
Taking my own advice. So that is keynotes. I've got a couple that I do that are on a regular thing. I've got my own podcast. The podcast is a year old. So what I did is I revamped it into season two and
Love
made sure I was laser focused on what that podcast was, what it was meant for, and how it was going to work and tie into the rest of the company. So the podcast is the Hustle and Grind podcast. And just getting onto as many stages and using my own tools that I have used in other companies to build my authority in it and get onto a bunch of as many stages as I can, just getting myself out there and above the noise. That's really what you want to do when you're building authority is you want to be the go-to person. You don't just want to be, oh yeah, he does keynotes. You're like, no, he's the person that does keynotes and that's it. He's the choice.
it. Got it.
And doing that
Yeah.
is just building that authority wheel. Yep.
Amazing, amazing. And then just one last question that I
Sure.
definitely want to hear from you is, as far as the authority building industry as a whole, where do
Mhm.
you see that going? Where do you see the evolution of the industry? And you have a very unique storytelling, a driven approach to that. So what are you really doing to position yourself ahead of the evolution of the industry?
The big one is that there's results out of it. So that's the first part is that I've used this process before to build companies. So therefore, it's not something that's newer. But as far as getting out, we're starting to see a major shift in these industries in general, where authority is now becoming a bigger thing. And you're starting to hear that term more and more. And there's a reason AI has taken out all of these low-level jobs like producing podcasts and these other things. And it's taking a lot of that over. I don't think it's ever going to 100% take over, understanding how AI works and what it's really good at and what it's not. But what we're doing is all of that little tasks that we don't want to do, it's taking over. Now the thought leader and the authority and the higher level thinking that is what we're bringing to the table. And so I think as far as authority in the future is concerned, I think we're going to see that trend keep going more and more at this point because people are understanding if it's just editing a podcast, dude, Riverside can do that.
Exactly.
This is the strategy behind the podcast and how to actually make it work. The second part of authority that I see happening right now to get my crystal ball out is with AI, we're going to see a lot of mediocre content come out. It's going to content.
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of having someone who, and I'm not bashing AI, it's a very powerful tool. It's very useful. I use it in my company. It's something that it has a place. You're going to see a lot of people try to DIY things, and that kind of mediocre content is going to take over. Getting above that noise is going to be a little bit more difficult because now there's a huge volume of that noise in the bottom. Positioning yourself as an authority, the person that you want to go to, the go-to person for this versus just another noise in the sea, that's going to be the big thing too. So hopefully that answered your question.
It did. And
I'm a
just love.
storyteller. Sometimes it's a winding path.
Hey, listen, and I love it. That's the beauty of it. And truly, it's been an honor and a pleasure having you on, just hearing your approach, especially for myself, right? Hosting a podcast. I love your approach and your energy. And I mean, clear as day why you're seeing the success that you're seeing and the success that you've already seen. So just one more, I want to wrap us up in the lightning round here and would
Sure.
love to hear this side from you, Andrew. And that's just going to be a piece of advice. Obviously, you have such an extensive background, so much experience, so much knowledge, and again, drive and passion. What can you leave our listeners with before we wrap up the show today?
So this is especially relevant to when you're first starting and you're in the grind. I was talking to a friend of mine who's been founding companies for over 30 years. He currently has a company, he's up and going, he's going through exactly the same process that somebody who just started out is. That grind. That moment when you don't have traction yet, you're getting all your processes in place, you're getting all of these things together, you're trying to learn what works, you're learning what doesn't work, and you're working 16 million hours a day, and you're chief everything officer. And I want to speak specifically to those people, again, experienced or not. I was really frustrated one day going through this for the first time, this process. And so talked to a really good mentor and a really good friend of mine. I was just really frustrated, venting off, just, oh my God, why did I do this? Questioning your existence, which is, I think, an integral part of being an entrepreneur is questioning your existence and why you did this. Why did I do this to myself? And I was really worrying about the future. And he said to me something that has stuck with me for many years. And that is the only way to fail is to quit, period. Everything else you'll figure out. One of the most impactful statements I've ever had anyone tell me that, and it switched something in my mind that said, I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah,
I don't care what happened. I'm going to figure this out, period. And just that amount of freedom, knowing that I have 100% control of my life and that I can just work these problems, make it happen, and go from there. So I would say that is probably the biggest thing. And those moments when you really need it the most, and there's a ton of advice out there for building companies and all these things. But when you really need that advice is when you're in the suck, you're in that darkness that happens. The only way to fail is to quit.
love it. I love that. With that right there, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. Andrew, truly cannot thank you enough coming on the show, sharing your amazing journey and your insights with us. And as I just mentioned, your energy, it's just the drive that you have, the passion. It was an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show today. Definitely would love to have you back in another 6 months to a year, get a great update because I know there's going to be many. So again, thank you so much. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, which I know so many of you have, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And also don't forget to check out The Authority Forge at theauthorityforge.com to learn more about their services like the Podcast Pros and Keynote Architects. And follow Andrew on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/Andrew Chesnutt. And for more resources and insights, you can visit us here at closers.io, where we are dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their growth through trained appointment setters and world-class marketing systems. Until then, keep climbing, and we will see you on the next one.